Hello, welcome to Pearls of Righteousness. Good evening. Tonight I came with the fourth letter of the Hebrew alphabet and its correlation in Psalms 119. Okay, so tonight's letter is that of the Dalet. Okay, the Dalet. And we've discovered that in the Hebrew alphabet, each letter has a picture that goes with it, and it also has a meaning. And so tonight's letter, the Dalet, it has the picture of that of a tent door. Okay, it's a tent door, and it means basically a pathway into something, or an entrance into something, is to enter into. Okay, and we know that's what a door is for. Okay, and so without further ado, I would just like to say as well that in this segment of the Psalms, it is showing the determination of the psalmist to obey the Father's commandments, the Father's laws. As we read through, you will see. Okay, and we know that in John 14 and verses 6, Yahushua, which is, some of you might say JC, he says that I am the way, I am the doorway, I am the entrance into. All right, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. Okay, and he said no one comes unto the Father except through me. Yahushua, the doorway, the pathway, the entrance into, which is what this letter means, right? The doorway. Also in Proverbs 12 and verses 28, we see that that righteousness is also a pathway. And what does that pathway lead to? It leads to life. Okay, Proverbs 12:28. And so, without further ado, we know as well that there are many types of doorways, there are many types of paths and entrances, but they all have, they lead you to different things. Okay, and so let's see what the segment of the Psalms and the Dalet and how it relates, and see what this segment of the Psalm is supposed to be leading us to. And like I said already, that it's showing determination of the psalmist to obey these laws and the commandments of the Most High. And so verses 25 to 32, it reads, verse 25, he says, my soul cleaveth unto the dust. Quickeneth thou me according to thy word. This is what he's saying to the Most High. He said, quicken me according to your word. Quicken him and make him right. Make him come together as he's supposed to be, according to what? The word. Okay? And we also know that Yahushua is the word that was made flesh. Okay? Now, verses 26, it says, I have declared my ways, okay, and thou heardest. So he said, you've declared the ways, the entrances that he's taken, and the Father has heard. So then he turned around and he said, teach me thy statutes. So he's asking the Father to teach me your rules, teach me the way of life, the way that I must go, teach them to me. Verse 27, he says, make me to understand the way. What is the way? The doorway, the pathway. He's asking the Father, he said, make me to understand the way of thy precepts, the way of his commandments, the way of his rules, and his laws. Make me understand, he's saying, so shall I talk of thy wondrous works. When he knows the doorway of the precepts of the Father. And then he said, in verse 28, he said, my soul melted for heaviness. His soul is melting with heaviness. So he's saying to the Father, Strengthen thou me according unto thy word. Strengthen me according to your word. He said, remove from me the way, the entrance, the pathway. He said, remove it from me, the pathway of lying. Okay? And grant me the law graciously. Okay? So he's admitting that he tells lies, it is a liar. And then that pathway, that door is in his life somewhere or the other. Right? He said, I have chosen the way, the pathway, the door of truth. He said, thy judgments have I laid before me. So he knows, what the Father's judgments are, and he's laid them before him as a reminder so that he is aware of what he'll be judged by. Okay? He says, I have stuck unto thy testimonies, O Yahuwah. Put me not to shame. Okay? And the last verse says, I will run the way of thy commandments when thou shalt enlarge my heart. Now, basically, I want to focus on this last verse. He's saying, basically, he says, the psalmist is saying, I will run the way of Yah's commandments. Meaning, what he's meaning is that he's saying that he will obey the pathway of the Father, okay, the Father's commands. Whatever the pathway is, whatever the door is, whatever it takes for him to enter in to life, to enter into the Father's way, he said, I will obey, okay? I will run the way, I will obey the pathway that I have to take. Because, and why will he do that? Because the Most High will enlarge his heart. The last part of the verse, it says, when thou shalt enlarge my heart. Okay? In other words, he's saying the Father will give him more understanding. So as he take and he obey the pathway of the Father's commandment, in turn, the Father will give him more understanding. And as he obey, he gains more understanding. So, you see, it's first of all, we have to be obedient. But when we want to be puffed up or proud and we don't want to follow the instructions, we don't understand, we walk in ignorance. But as we obey, the Father enlarges our heart, meaning he gives us more insight, he gives us more understanding, he opens up more things to us. Okay, so I'm encouraging you, brethren, for those of you who say that you don't have to follow the law, the law is done away with and all these things, even when people we are showing you in scripture where it's wrong, and we know that this Bible is being whitewashed, and it's being there's lots of corruption in here, and things that books that should be here and things that we should be reading are not. We're still fighting. But look what the apostle said in Acts chapter 24 and verses 14. He says, this is Shaul. He says, but this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, they meaning the Gentiles and all those who don't believe that the law still stands, okay? So worship I the God, the Yah, the Elohim of my fathers, believing all things, he's saying, which are written in the law and in the prophets. I'll read that again. He says, Shaul, Paul, is saying, but this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, they meaning the Gentiles and the people who don't believe, he said, so worship I, Shaul, Paul. He said, I worship the Yah of my fathers, which is the Most High, believing he believe all things which are written in the law and in the prophets. So you see, in the New Testament, the apostle is saying that he believed all things, and he basically obeyed the commandments. He said he obeyed them, and he said, I believe them. Sorry, all things that are written in the law and in the prophets. Okay? He believed all of them. So, where we say that, oh, we don't have to follow the law, we don't have to follow the Torah and stuff like that. Please, you're all wrong. There are things that are, anyway, I'm not going to go into that. But from this scripture, we see that the doorway, there is the precepts of the Most High. In verses 27 of Psalms 119, we see that the precepts or the rules, they are doorways into the Father. Okay? In verses 29, we see that lying is a doorway, it's a pathway, it's an entrance into what? The hatred of the Most High. Okay? In Proverbs, you said, oh, the Father don't hate. But when we look at Proverbs chapter 6 and verses 17, we can see that there are 6 things in Proverbs chapter 6 that the Most High hates. And lying is one of them. Okay? It says that it leads into the hatred of the Most High. Lying is a pathway, is a doorway that does what? It leads you into the Most High's hatred. Yes, the Most High hates. He hates lying. Okay? We can also see in verse 30 that the truth is also a pathway. It's a door into freedom, the freedom of the Father. Okay? It leads us into truth, the truth. Truth is a pathway that leads us into freedom, the freedom of the Most High. Also in verses 32, the last verse that we read, we see that the commandments, which are also statutes, which are also laws or rules, if some of you might say rules, right? The commandments is also a pathway. It's a doorway that leads into life, that leads into the goodness of the Most High, the favor of the Most High, the blessings of the Most High. When we follow the commandments, the Most High berooks us, He blesses us. Okay? The commandments are also pathways. That's why this letter of the Hebrew alphabet is in relation to this segment of the psalm. It is showing you about being obedient, right? The obedience of the psalmist to follow the Father's commandments. Okay? And so I'd like to encourage you on that note to take note. Sorry, let me turn. Take note of the Father's precepts, His statutes, His judgments, His testimonies, His commandments, and His law, because they are all one and the same. Okay? And this thing about that the law is done away with is not true, right? We also see that righteousness is a doorway, right? Righteousness is a path. Like I said before in Proverbs 12:28, righteousness is also a pathway. Okay? And so take note, my brethren, and choose life. Choose the pathway that leads to life. Okay? Choose the pathway of the commandments that leads to the blessings and the favor of the Most High. Follow the Dalet. Follow the door, the pathway, the entrance that leads you into life. Okay? And on that note, I'd just like to say, hasta la vista, until we come with the fifth letter. Okay? Shalom.